Okay, so what was, I told you before you started, what was key was that it said vertical. Okay, when it says vertical, that means we do not take the reciprocal, so 1/2 stayed 1/2. And when it says vertical, that just means it goes in front. The dilemma on this was there was already something in front, so you had to know what to do with that. We just multiplied it. -3 times 1/2. I left mine as -3/2. Some of you put -1.5. When would I have put the 1/2 or the 2 or whatever? When would I have put it inside? What kind of shrink or stretch? Horizontal. Very good. But this one was vertical, so it just stayed to the front. That's the things we got to keep straight in our minds. All right, so we're going to review over all the ones that we did yesterday, and then we'll combine them into some two-steppers. You can do it. They're easy. Oh, yeah, you can. I got faith. All right, first thing that we're going to write here says f of x equals x plus 2. F of x equals x plus 2. Remember that standard operating procedure I told you earlier? We'll go from our bell work into our notes. F of x equals x plus 2. Before I tell you what we're going to do to that, what family does that belong to? Constant, linear, quadratic, absolute value. Linear, right? That's just normal on lines, so that's in the linear family. All right, we're going to take that good old line there, and all we're going to do is translate it 2 units to the right. 2 units to the right. What does that mean I'm going to have to do to it? Lacey said it. She's correct. Anybody else know?
No.
Okay. Why'd she say subtract? I thought right meant add.
The opposite.
Good. The x's are opposite. Right, left, that's an x. X is always the opposite, so I just have to subtract 2. I'm going to write this a little bit funny looking to you. G of x equals x, and I'm subtracting 2 from it. Then there's still that plus 2 that's on the end, right? So what does that end up doing to those 2's? Good, they go. -2 and 2 is nothing. So it's just g of x is equal to x. Winner, chicken dinner.
Well, I got it down yesterday.
Well, there's some more. You're going to get right is always opposite. So instead of adding 2, we subtract 2. And the 2's just happen to cancel out. -2 plus 2. It's okay. We're not done. No test tomorrow yet. We're not done. Let's look at, keep it basic right now. F of x equals 2x minus 9, and I want to translate that 6 units up. X minus 9, I want to translate it 6 units up. Up, is that horizontal or vertical? It's vertical, like your vertical leap, you jump up, so it's vertical. When I go up vertically, does it do the opposite sign or the right sign?
Right.
Correct, the right sign. So if I want to go up 6, I'm just going to add 6. Okay, so I'm going to say g of x is equal to 2x minus 9 plus 6. And then simplify. Is that what you got? What'd you get?
I didn't know what it was.
You're giving up now, Blake. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Do I know?
Alright, I'm going to let you try one because Blake's going to get it. Let's take f of x equals 5x minus 4. And let's scoot it to the left 2. we just want to scoot that line to the left too, what do we need to do to it? Add 2. Everybody all right on that? So now add 2 on there. Gives me 5x. Now again. Good job. I know you can do it. That feel all right? Okay. Well, let's do an absolute value one now. Those were all linear. Let's look here at f of x equals absolute value of 4x plus 3 plus 2. And let's scoot that 2 units down. See if you can figure that one out. Go. Go 2 down. And then do stick 2 on the left. Add 2.
What about what?
If you went left right, it'd have to go in those bars. So in the bars, you either add or subtract. It's up and down, it's out on the end. Left and right, it's in the bars.
So if there's something on the outside, but you're on left and right, it is definitely.
Right, doesn't mess that up.
Parentheses, huh?
Okay. Alright, what we've got on this, and what was different from this one, the absolute value, it's got the extra stuff outside the bars. On those linear ones, it was just kind of all one big lump there. So when we're wanting to move this up, I gotta know, or excuse me, that's a down there, stupid. We're wanting to move this down, I gotta know where am I gonna go my down to? Does it go on the end, or does it go in the bars?
What? Didn't hear.
Am I going to subtract 2 from the end or from inside the bars? From the end. Up and down is always from the end, remember? Since it's a down 2, I'm going to subtract 2. So if there's a 2 out there and I subtract 2, that thing's just gone, isn't it? So your final answer is just g of x equals absolute value of 4x plus 3. Shazam. Only go inside the bars if you're scooting it right and left on your scoots, on your translations, on your slides. Outside the bars is your up and down.
Say you did that and it would go left and right, you wouldn't mess with the variable or the number in front of x, would you just do the plus 3?
Right. Oh, that's right, Amy. Alright, let's look at this. It says f of x equals 1/2 x minus 3. We're going to reflect this, or to reflections, we're going to reflect this in the x-axis. Alright, so when I see the word or hear the word reflection, looking in a mirror comes to my mind. And I know if I look in a mirror and hold up my left arm, it looks the opposite way in the mirror, doesn't it? So I'm thinking opposite, I need to put a negative somewhere in this. On reflections, the negative can go one of 2 places. It can go in front of the whole thing, or it can go just in front of the variable. So on an x-axis reflection, does it go in front of the whole thing, or just in front of the variable? Guess again. Good. Goes in front of the whole thing. So we're going to say g of x, and I'm going to put a negative in front of that whole thing. Okay, so then what does that mean I need to do with that negative that's out there in front of the whole thing? Distribute it. It's the same as -1 like David said, so we're distributing it -1. So that makes it g of x equals -1/2 x plus 3. Is that what you would get? Yep. Okay, so the x-axis, put it in front of the whole thing. Wonder what's different about the y-axis. Let's look at one of those. We've got f of x is equal to the absolute value of 6x minus 2. Now, close that bar there. There we go. This is one of my favorite problems of the day, but it's a little bit tricky. So we'll see some weird stuff and talk about why it's a little bit tricky. We're reflecting this, I told you I didn't write it yet, in the y-axis. Okay, so we're going to reflect that in the y-axis. So I know, again, reflection. I raised my left arm in the mirror, but it looks opposite, so I need to put a negative sign. Since I'm y-axis, I only put the negative with the variable, right? Looking at your notes from yesterday, so that's going to say g of x is equal to the absolute value of 6, and I make my variable be a negative. Okay, now, what is that? How do I clean that up inside those bars? What's 6 times negative x? Negative 6x. So you could have skipped that step. The absolute value of negative 6x minus 2. Okay, but now so we got to a problem. Somebody made up some math rules and said you can't leave a negative like that in the absolute value bars. So I got to divide a negative out. Which isn't a big deal because there's nothing else in those bars, so it's not going to affect anything else. So we just divide that negative out and it switches it to a positive. Do I divide a negative out of here? Out of the -2? No, because it wasn't in the bars. Good job. So that's it. That's exactly what I wanted you to see. Abby said I got the same thing I started with. So here's the question. And it's cool. How in the heck can I reflect something over the y-axis and it be the exact same? Okay, let's look at the original, what it would look like on the graph. It's got a -2, so that means it's scooted down 2. It's got a stretch because it says times 6 in there, and 6 is bigger than 1, so it would be stretched. But there's nothing added or subtracted to the x, so it's not scooted right or left any, correct? So the vertex is on that axis. So it's going to be looking something similar to that. I said let's reflect it over the y-axis. Where's the y-axis in this picture?
Straight up and down.
So if I folded it over that axis, what's it going to be? The same. So the equation's the same. So that's kind of weird and cool. I like that one. I guess because I'm weird, but worked out. Neat. Neato Frito. Alrighty. Alright, Lacey? Let's do another reflection before we move on. Let's say I got f of x equals absolute value of 2x minus 1 plus 3. And we're going to reflect that in the y-axis again. Alright, so if I'm reflecting that in the y-axis, does the negative go just to the letter or to everything? Just to the letter. See, y'all got that. Just to the letter. So I'm going to say g of x, absolute value of 2 times just my letter got negative. Everything else stayed the same. Now simplify that in there. You know what 2 times negative x is. Oh shoot, hold on. It's doing stupid stuff. There we go. What's 2 times negative x in there? So it's negative 2x minus 1. Okay? Something wrong with that. What's wrong with it? You have that negative in the absolute value. So all I need to do is get the negative out of the absolute value. Just divide everything by a negative that's in the absolute value. So that turns out to a positive 2x. What about this minus 1? Positive 1, good job. And don't mess with the plus 3. That's it. That's it, my friends. Alright. Got what you need there? Okay, this one, I'm going to go to a different thing now. This one says f of x equals 2x plus 6. We are going to vertically shrink that by a factor of 1/2. Vertical shrink by a factor of 1/2. All right, so this is what we did on the bell ringer. Our options for stretching and shrinking are vertical or horizontal. This one says vertical. When I do vertical, do I leave the factor like it is, or do I take its reciprocal? David, I'm leaving it like it is. So 1/2 stays 1/2. That's question number 1. Question number 2, when I do vertical, does it go just to the letter or does it go to the whole thing? Whole thing. Good, Abby. So I'm going to take g of x. I'm going to put 1/2 in front of the whole thing. So now all I need to do to simplify that is what? Distribute, multiply, good, send that 1/2 to everything. Tell me this, what's 1/2 times 2x? 1x, very good. You would be surprised how many people would miss that. 1/2 of 2, struggles. And then 1/2 times 6, that's it. Coming back to you yet? Hot in here. I think this will be the bad class because Toler's prep is 4th, and that's my biggest class. So her room is empty, and hers is where the thermostat is. So it's going to be cool in there. I have 31 in here. It's going to be sweltering, and it'll take it this class to get back to normal.
You have how many in that class?
31. I had to put a chair on the end back there for the group. And she doesn't have anybody, so it's cool in there. And it's going to take it a while to get settled back in, but oh well. We'll just be like, who designs the school and puts thermostat in every 3 rooms so it wasn't run. Let's look at f of x is equal to the absolute value of 2x, and then we got a plus 4. It's a 4. It's like 4 subtract. Plus 4. We are going to do a horizontal shrink with a factor of 1/2. Alright, so we're shrinking, but what's important is that it says horizontally. So when we do horizontally, do we keep the factor like it is, or do we use the reciprocal? Reciprocal, good job. What's the reciprocal of 1/2? 2, we just flip it. So 2, if we flip that to 2 over 1, 2 is the factor I'm going to be concerned with. Okay? Now when I do horizontal shrink, does it go in front of the whole thing, or just the variable? Just the variable. Vertical's the whole thing. Horizontal's just the variable. So we're putting in front of just the variable. So we're going to say g of x is equal to the absolute value. I've already got a 2 in there. I'm putting another 2 in there. And there's an x in there. Now you would have skipped that step. I'm showing it all out. Because you know what that means. 2 times 2 times x. You got that, right? 2 times 2 times x. Don't forget to close that bar. Right? Is that what you got? Now, I'm going to let you try one of those. Refresh your memories. You got what you need on them? Let's look at, if I ever turn the page and you're not done, all I got to do is push back, so don't be hesitant to tell me you weren't ready. Let's look at f of x is equal to the absolute value of x plus 3. And let's horizontally stretch that by a factor of 4. Okay? Things you're asking yourself. Do I use 4 or do I use its reciprocal? Do I put it in front of the whole thing or do I put it just in front of the x? Those are the questions you're asking yourself. So, how come we put a 3 there? What? Because that's the only thing that changed. Why did we put a 3? So you got to figure out the reciprocal of 4 is. What's the reciprocal of 4? No? Yeah. Just put 1 4. Let's see, everything else stayed the same. Right. That's it, dude. It's horizontal. We need to do the reciprocal. And then that'll go on horizontal. Just goes in front of the x. So you just put it in front of the x. So it's just 1 4 x plus 3.
So it's not my hand, though. But I said, I don't think it's here too.
You good? Good look. I was looking for those.
Yeah, right, miss. If somebody had.
Yep, that's right.
Or you sit down and you cut it up.
Alright, so on this one it was a horizontal stretch, so we needed to figure out if we used 4 or if we used its reciprocal. Which is it? Reciprocal, good job. So then that puts us in a dilemma is what is the reciprocal of 4? 1/4, because remember 4 is the same as 4 over 1. So when you flip that, that gets you your reciprocal of 1/4. Now horizontal, does that go in front of the whole thing or just the x? Just the x. So all you got to do is say g of x is equal to the absolute value. Put your 1/4 in front of just the x. Everything else stayed the same. Winner, chicken dinner. Alright, let's throw them together now. Combinations. Start you off with the parent function of a linear, f of x equals x. That's it. That's as basic as I can get right there. F of x equals x. Now when you do a combination means more than one. You got to go in the order they tell them to you. You can't pick your favorite. You got to follow the order they tell you. So first thing we're going to do with this is a vertical shrink by a factor of 0.25. After we get that done, our next move is going to be a vertical slide or a translation of +3. So we're going to take it up 3. Bless you. So we're going to do those two things to that. We're going to vertically shrink it by 0.25, and then we're going to scoot it up 3. All right, so got to go in order. Got to do the vertical shrink first. So shrink, that has to do with reciprocal. When it's vertical, do I keep it like it is, or do I flip it? Keep it like it is. Vertical stays 0.25, so that's got to keep it like it is. Now, when it's vertical, do I put it in front of the whole thing or just the x? The whole thing. But on this silly equation, it doesn't matter, does it? Because the whole thing is just an x, so wouldn't matter a whole lot. So we're just going to say g of x equals 0.25x. We just vertically shrunk it. We did that part. Mark that off. We're good. Check. Whatever you want to do. I guess I should have done a check mark instead of marking it out. You might want to read it later. Okay, but now my next part, combination, we're doing more than one. My next part is I want to slide it, I want to translate it up 3. So I'll just add 3. Very good. So I'm going to say g of x equals 0.25x plus 3. Now, I made a mistake earlier in the day. I said, trying to mislead somebody, not like to be mean, but just to make sure they understood it, they didn't. I said, what do we do next? Somebody said, that makes 3.25x. I said, whoa, we don't understand. You can't do that, right? That is my final answer. Why can I not combine that to make 3.25x? Good. They were combining those like terms. This one's got an x. This one does not. You can't combine those. Y'all remember that from middle school, right? Felt bad for that soul this morning. Those, whew, I don't have my work cut out. Hope they don't watch that on the video, and that makes them say their name.
I got your name, man.
Alright, let's do another one. Combo. Use that same function. F of x equals x. We'll get a more complicated one here in a minute. We are going to translate that 3 units down, followed by a vertical shrink of 1/3. Three units down, vertical shrink of 1/3. Got to go in the order they gave it to us, so we got to do the 3 units down first. What's 3 units down going to look like on that? Good, it's just going to be x minus 3. So you got g of x is x minus 3. Check. Now I got to do a vertical shrink of that, of my new one, of what I'm working with there. Vertical, does that keep the 1/3 or does it take the reciprocal? Keeps it. Does it go just to the x or to the whole thing? Whole thing. So we're going to say g of x is 1/3 times the whole thing. Not a bad answer there, but you can clean that up. How does that get cleaned up? Say it again, that was right. Good. Distribute that 1/3. So that makes g of x is 1/3 x minus, what's 1/3 times 3? No.
What?
3/3.
4.75. 4?
Fix that to do a fractions lesson.
Yeah.
1. Okay.
1.
I was just gonna, you got a flip them, something like that? You put a 1 under the 3?
I had 1/3. Yes, and that's right, Blake, times 3. And 3 is the same as 3 over 1, right?
And then you flip it.
3 times 1. Could do this that way. 3 times 1. What's 3 over 3 the same as? 1. Here's the way I do it. 3's cancel out. All this stuff is 1. And that works on any fraction like that. If I do 1/4 times 4, it's 1. 1/5 times 5, it's 1. When the denominator is the same as the big number, it's 1 like that. Okay? We did that on 1/2 and 2 earlier, and y'all got it. You just didn't catch it when it went to a different number. Okay.
Coach Ryan,
Yep.
you pick up.
Sure. Love it when nigger comes. Yes, sir. Woo! Cool. All right. Okay, sounds good. Thanks. Bye. Wow, another combo. Which is an absolute value in this one. F of x is equal to the absolute value of x, so just same basic parent function. Let's take this 2 units to the right first, followed by a horizontal stretch of a factor of 2. That 2's all around. 2 units to the right, horizontal stretch of 2. Alright, so 2 units to the right. Now, got to be more careful with this one because I've got absolute value bars. When I'm scooting up and down, right and left, it matters with absolute value bars if it's out on the end or if it's inside with the X. So on this one, I'm scooting right. Is that going to get stuck on the end or inside with the X? Inside with the X, right? Okay, when I move right and left, there's something weird about those signs. It goes the opposite way. So right 2 actually means subtract 2 in those bars. If it had been up or down, it would have been stuck out on the back. Okay, so check, we did the right 2. Now I want to do a horizontal stretch of 2. Horizontal. Do I keep the 2 or do I use its reciprocal? What is the reciprocal of 2? 1/2. So I'm using 1/2. Horizontal, does it go in front of the whole thing or just in the bars? Say it again. Just with the variable. Good, Lacey. So just with the variable. So g of x is the absolute value, and I just put the 1/2 with the variable. That's it. Bada bing, bada boom.
How'd they figure out that math problem ended up saying I love you?
I imagine they could probably Google it. I don't know.
How does it say?
In the parentheses, or the
The imaginary number I.
Who was that?
Oh, Maddie Wells.
Oh.
Alright, let's look again. Just do one
Don't
that's.
hear about Chrissy Rock and Dave Wells?
Who cares?
F of x equals absolute value of x plus 10 minus 20. So just added some more stuff, make it look a little bit more complicated, but it's not. Alright, we'll do one with you, and then I'll let you try one on your own. First thing we're going to do in our combo here is move it 15 units down. 15 units down. After I move it 15 units down, I'm going to reflect it. I haven't done a reflect in a few minutes. I'm going to reflect it in the y-axis. So we move 15 units down and then reflect it in the y-axis. Now, if I were having to graph this on my own, I'd probably be a little bit grumpier than normal. Because it starts off at negative 20. So I've already got to draw my axis and go down to negative 20. Then, I got to move it 15 more down. So I'm going to have to draw a pretty big graph to get all that on there. If I'm already down at negative 20, and I got to drop it 15 more, what am I going to be down to? Negative 35, right?
Did you just do a bar break or whatever it's called?
Yeah, what else? Yeah, you probably could. Yeah. Make me less grumpy, I guess. There, Blake.
Yeah.
So we're going to down 15. So we're subtracting that 15 from the end, because remember the end is your up and down. So we're looking at g of x is equal to absolute value of x plus 10 minus 35. Had some people put a minus 5 there earlier in the day. Negative 20 minus 15 is negative 35. Alright, so check, done with that one. Now we got to reflect that on the y-axis. So we're back to this reflection stuff. And remember, reflection is opposite negative. So I got to put a negative somewhere. When I'm reflecting in the y-axis, does my negative go in front of the whole thing or just the variable? Just the variable. Very good. So I'm going to have g of x, and I'm just putting my negative with the variable. Now, good news, bad news. Bad news is I got that rule that somebody made up, says I can't leave that negative variable in there. Good news, it's easy to fix. Just take the opposite sign of everything in there, right? We've figured that out already now, right? So that's going to be g of x is the absolute value, opposite Opposite. Do I make this the opposite? No, that stays. We already talked about it. It had to go all the way down to 35, so I can't make it the opposite. That would move it up. That's it. Got it? All right, let me let you try one of them, and we'll be drawing it to a conclusion here shortly. Let's use that same function again. Everybody got what you need off that one? Let's say f of x equals absolute value of x plus 10 minus 20. Let's do a horizontal shrink of 0.1. And I'll help you with that in a second if I need to. Then, after the horizontal shrink of 0.1, let's move it 2 units to the left. Alright, we'll give you a little bit of guidance, and then we'll shut up and you're going to finish it. Horizontal shrink, does that keep the factor or take the reciprocal? Reciprocal, but I've got a decimal. So before I can take the reciprocal of it, I need to know what its fraction equivalent is. So I need to know 0.1 is the same as what in fraction form?
1/10.
1/10, right? That's the same as 1/10, right? Remembering that? So what's the reciprocal of 1/10? 10 over 1 or just 10. So that's the factor that you're going to be concerned about. Since it's horizontal, is it going in front of the whole thing or just the variable? Just the variable. Okay? You ought to be able to get some of that done now. Try it and see. Check with your table buddy there, see, compare them. Sorry, Blake.
It's okay, we can the same amount of work done.
I thought you might do things differently this go around, but you're not going to.
I did.
Oh. How?
Did you second me anything?
He just loves it somewhere.
I got it on my thing. Y'all do the hard slide.
It is, it's
I've absorbed
different.
something
Good.
more.
Alright, so I'm going to take that 10. I'm going to put it just with the variable. That was my step 1, and I kind of guided you there pretty good, so everybody should have. Now, I had somebody before lunch also give it to that back 10. Don't do that. It goes just to the variable, right? Okay, so we're good on the horizontal shrink. Now, what about a left 2? Does left 2, does it go in the bars with the X or outside on the end? In the bars. What goes outside? Up and down. Up and down goes outside, left and right goes inside. If I'm moving left, do I add that 2 or subtract it? Add it. Good job. So I'm going to say g of x is the absolute value of 10x plus 12. You done it. That's it.
So there's just little steps that I know how to do it if I get past my
You're like the Rain Man. You just know the answer. You can't do all that little stuff.
No, I didn't know the answer either, but
No.
there's just little stuff in between that it's my way kind of thing. But if I can get past it, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm more like the world's smartest person. Just not.
That's pretty good. Okay. Compared to yesterday, you feel better about it today than you did yesterday? A little bit, hopefully, everybody, a little bit.
Funnest thing I've done all day.
This is the easiest thing you've done all day.
It's the funnest. I like it, man.
I like it. Good job. All right, we're going to do something a little bit different tomorrow. I'll tell you about the end, so be good to go for right now. Good job. Feel better today, Lisa? Feel better about it today? Yeah. Good. Where are you going? We can miss our fun.
I should be here, bro.
I hope so.
I was in here.
I'll get the Windows 10 and 4th period.
And I told you basic like because we eat